Welcome to our next in a series of videos on how to audit different processes. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at the production processes. As always, we want to tie it back to the relationship between what we're talking about and the DQS quality policy. Of course, process-oriented audits is what we're all about these days. We want to verify the effectiveness of management systems. We want to add value. And we want to make sure we issue internationally respected certificates. Doing an effective audit in the production areas aids all of these goals. It's pretty easy to see why it would generate value, why process-oriented audits would be, but it also makes sure that our certificates are respected because we're hitting the thing we should be hitting, which is the production processes which are most important to the customer. Some of you have seen this chart before, and this is going to be the drum we bang in 2019. Big three of auditing production. Get out of the conference room as fast as possible. Get to the records. Talk to the operators. So in 2019, every time we talk, we're going to be talking about sampling. That has been our biggest problem that we've seen through the witness audit program. It's the thing we got to work on as a team to make sure we sample adequately and use cross-sectional sampling techniques. So let's get into it. As part of audit planning, and then when you're doing the plant tour, you want to find some stuff out before you go into a production area. You want to identify the processes. You'll do this as part of audit planning, and then when you walk through the plant, you'll verify those things. You want to focus on any special processes. Those are processes where you can't see the results immediately, saying things like plating and heat treating. You can't verify those results necessarily. You need to ask questions about documentation that is used on the floor. You want to find out, do they use travelers or shop orders? How do the various stations that are manufacturing the product get the information to start their jobs? You want to ask questions about whether training is centralized, meaning it's done in HR or some other department, or decentralized, meaning it's done at the department level, because if it's decentralized and you know that, you can do training as you go throughout the audit. You want to know if the operators are doing any preventive maintenance. You want to ask some questions about who's doing inspection, particularly things like first piece inspection. And ask questions on what happens with non-conforming products. So the little walk about the plant here is more than just kicking tires. You want to ask some questions. You want to learn some things while you're walking through. It's not an audit. You just want to learn some high-level things that will help you when you get out to the floor. Now let's get right into the sequence. This is a better way to start a production audit than, so what do you do here? What sort of paperwork do you get to start a job? Do you get a work order or traveler? Can you show me? Show me is a key phrase throughout the production audit process. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later, a few questions down here. What materials are required for the job? How do you know you have the right ones? Can we look at those? So they're going to show you a bomb or a router or something with raw materials on it. Go verify that they're using the exact raw materials. How do you set up a machine? How do you know what the machine settings should be? Can you show me what these settings are? Do you inspect the first piece? Can you show me how you do one? If they're not inspecting the first piece, can you show me the first piece was inspected? For most of the processes we talk about, first piece inspection is going to be the means of control. So your normal, non-special processes, stamping, forming, things like that, plastic injection molding, all first piece inspection controlled. Do you inspect parts while running a job? How often do you do it? Can you show me where you record the results? More important than that, can you show me how you inspect one? This will help you understand whether gauges are capable, whether they're really doing it. Because if they're having trouble inspecting a part in front of you and they're supposed to be doing it once an hour, that means they're probably not doing it. What do you do if you have a bad part? What happens with the good parts? So this one, the bad part, good part, this is taking you down the control of non-conforming. Good parts, this is taking you down packaging, labeling, over to the next process. If they're at the final process and they're packaging and labeling, then you might want to check for customer-specific requirements. Do you have any production goals you're held to? So now we're going to kind of segue into some of the other questions in production, like KPI related. Can you show me those goals? Do you have any procedures or work instructions that define what you just walked me through? So if they have any documentation, you want to take a look at it. Some ancillary questions. If they're doing SPC, you want to explore those control charting. What are the rules that they're being held to? If they have out of control conditions, do they know what to do? See if they don't need to understand theory, but they need to understand how to execute that process. Look around the machine. This is about situational awareness. Do they have documents hanging off it? What are they? Do they need to be controlled? Look at where they stored the gauges. This is the audit of safeguarding against damage and deterioration of gauges. If the training is decentralized, audit training in that responsible area. Ask about cross-training. Can the operator run other machines? If they do that, are they trained to run those other machines? PM's decentralized. Ask them what sort of PM they do, what frequency, look at the records. And then I rarely ask about the quality policy, but it is a question that is in play in our business. How do you pick the operators you're going to sample? So if you're going to an assembly line, say there's 10 or more operators, you want to sample about 25%. And 25% is the goal we're looking for in the production areas. About 25 to 33% of your audit should be in production. The final inspection area is a good person to talk to. They can tell you where the key characteristics are. They can probably tell you where the problems are. If there's a repair person, talk to them. They might lead you also to the problem station. And they'll tell you who to talk to in assembly areas. In assembly areas, if they have a big runner, I always try and make sure I hit it. But because we tend to hit the same processes, I always try and pick something random, some smaller runner, so that we're not just always auditing the big runner. Any station that has a KPI or a key product characteristic is one you want to make sure you assess. If you're sampling individual operators like a bunch of stamping presses, or you're standing through this line, in front of this line of presses or injection molding machines, how many should you do? If there's 10, I would probably do 3, probably 4 maybe. It depends on what they are. You can look at which ones are running poorly. Those are ones you want to go to, or if you know there's a customer complaint, let's say you did corrective action before and you saw a customer complaint related to a certain process, that's a good indicator of where you might want to go. This next chart is all from Mr. Mike Brannick. Mike is in pain, and his pain is we're not covering all the shifts. So let me finally answer the question. You have to do the shifts. We need to hit all the shifts annually. Off shifts have newer people, so therefore they pose a higher risk to the company and the organization because they tend to have less knowledge and training. It's okay to redo processes. That's fine. It's actually really good to redo processes. So let's say you did a press on first shift, and now you're going to go do the same press again on third shift. You understand how it's supposed to work. Now you're going to see how it works on the off shift. Talk to as many people as you can on those off shifts. They don't get a lot of love, and this makes them feel part of the audit. It helps your management rep. Now, when you're doing the off shifts, don't worry about older records. You can get those on the day shift. We generally have limited amount of time on the off shift, so you want to get to as many operators as possible. You're going to hear this, and you're going to hear it all in all these presentations. We need to sample. So when you're done with a process area, ask the guide where the older records are kept. Go there, pull some, at least 6. Or go back to the last audit, in terms of your sampling. I like to do a lot more than 6, but if you're going to hit the minimum for you is 6. When you pull them, you got to read them. If it says pass, do they record the results that support that? Are they signed off as required by the organization? If they have control charting, pull some of the charts. If they're supposed to do something about something out of control, are they doing that? If the product failed, follow it into the system for control of non-conforming. They should have, even if it's older, they should have records that it was properly dispositioned. And here's your takeaway. If you haven't sampled the older records, you have not effectively audited production. We're not there to audit them for the day that we're there. We're there to see objective evidence of implementation or continued implementation for a longer period of time. These next charts I'm going to go through pretty quick. These are repeats from other presentations. What notes look like, a bunch of scribbling in here. Here's the important part, a sampling of older records, and this guy got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he did one more than the minimum. The point of showing you this is they don't have to be beautiful. Don't go back to your room and type your notes. Your notes are your notes. They're really here to show a little bit about the process and show the sample. This is section 3, and we're still working on section 3, and what we're converging on is that section 3 doesn't need to be all this. This guy wrote a whole bunch of stuff on what the process was and all that, but the important part is they wrote what they sampled, how many they sampled in each of these different areas. Another bit on notes, this is 8.6, so that's inspection. This is 8.7, so this is they were checking the disposition of non-conforming product. And finally, we're going to finish where we started. The big 3 of auditing production. You can't do it from a conference room. Get out of there as fast as possible and get to the floor. When you're on the floor, take a few minutes to understand what the operators are doing. You can do that with a supervisor, but once you got it, get to the operators as fast as possible. Have them show you what they do. Have them show you inspections. And then lastly, get to the older records. Do sampling. At least 6, more if possible. So our mantra in 2019 is going to be get to the floor, get to the operator, and sample the records. With that, I thank you for your time.